And we are live.
All right. Can you guys see my screen?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. The book, no.
Okay, let's try this again. Okay, this should work. Raphael, I have a little note that says on my screen, when I try to click on it, when I try to say got it, it's not doing anything. It's just frozen.
Oh, let me see.
And I think that's what's disturbing me from sharing my screen.
Is there any other window linked to Zoom also open?
No. Okay. It says this meeting is being live streamed. Okay, now I got it. So now it's out of the way. Now let's try to share my screen again. How is this? Is this any better?
Yes.
You guys see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we're going to continue from last week. We had this experience shared with us by Andre Luiz with, was it Francis? The young man who, you know, he came in completely distressed, followed by his own hallucinations. And we learned that that was as a result of his unusual and unnecessary attachment to his physical body. So I think we stopped at noting. So noting how deeply affected I was, Narcissa continued. Thanks to our Heavenly Father, I have learned a great deal in these years of service. How profound the spiritual slumber of most of our incarnate brothers is. Still, we mustn't worry to the point of letting it hurt us. The chrysalis adheres to inert matter, but the butterfly will rise from it in easy flight. The seed is almost imperceptible, although it is to become the giant oak. The withered flower returns to the earth, but its perfume abides in the air. All embryonic life appears to sleep. We must never forget these lessons. Narcissa fell into a silence which I dared not interrupt. I like how she summarizes this lesson here using the analogy that we have in nature with the butterfly and the seed. I mean, many of us, at least I hope that all of us here, we are no longer asleep, but most of humanity generally, I think, live life asleep. But there comes a point in time when we are compelled to awake by the imperatives of life. And Francis, if we go back to his example, he was rudely awakened by death itself. So we have the example of the butterfly, you know, seemingly asleep in its chrysalis. But there comes a time in life where the butterfly has to emerge. It doesn't have a choice. The seed, the giant oak tree, you know, it seems as if it's just a tiny seed sleeping within its embryo. But when life calls it to germinate and to grow, it has no choice. And, you know, I really like how she summarizes that lesson here. I think that's the end of this chapter. So moving on to chapter 30.
Can I just say one thing? Can I just say one thing before we move? As I was remembering the description from Francis, like the reason, like remember the demons that he was seeing, pursuing, he was actually the memory of his own corpse, and then they go to say that this is all due to the how connected we are to our physical bodies. And I think this was from our session last Tuesday. I don't know if it was on Tuesday or Thursday, because on Thursday we were on the same page in the gospel, so I end up repeating the lessons on Tuesday and Thursday, which is quite good, to be honest. But what worries me when I think about myself is, what are the things that I am not even realizing? Like the whole how I'm living my life, without even realizing, like the things that I prioritize, they are clearly because of my sensation, my material side, but I'm not. It doesn't even clock that I am that connected to matter in that sense. Those are the things I think worry me. I think the things that I know, fine. I know I might need to work on them. I know, at least I know what's going on, but I'm sure there are things that I don't even realize. I think that's what worries me when I think about that perspective.
Mm-hmm. But your comment actually goes back to what we were studying in our SSL gospel study last week, I think it was, when was it Allan Kardec? He gave us this, he talked about the point of view of life on earth, right?
Yeah.
So many of us, we live on earth. Yes, we, even as spiritists, we are aware of life after life, and it must come, but yet we have a tendency to just live, and we forget about how we should live to prepare for the afterlife. It's like we focus so much on the material aspect of living, and when it comes to just focusing on, okay, this is the life that we have to live, yes, but it's temporary, it's illusory, we're going to have to let it go for a while, and it's very difficult for us to live almost as if we're outside of our body, right? Yeah, we know we're here on earth, we have these things to do, but yet we have to keep in mind that we're preparing for another life. It's not always easy. How many of us are able and willing to let go? I was given this example. If we're called today, if we're told by our guardian angel today or tonight, tomorrow is your last day, are you prepared? Am I prepared? No matter how much we study, but are we prepared to go? All right, moving on. Any other comments?
Oh, good.
No? Okay.
No, thank you.
Inheritance and euthanasia. I had not yet recovered from my astonishment when Sallustius came to Narcissa and said, "Our sister Pauline wishes to see her father in Pavilion 5. Before complying, I thought I had better consult with you, as the patient is still experiencing a deep crisis." In her usual gentle manner, she replied, "Show her in at once. Pauline is devoting all her leisure time to the delicate task of reconciling the different members of her family, so she has Veranda's permission to see her father whenever necessary." Pauline has the difficult and delicate task of reconciling the different members of her family member. This raises a thought for me, but I'm not quite sure what we're going to read later on. So let's see. The messenger left hastily, and Narcissa informed me, "You'll see what a devoted daughter she is." Less than 1 minute later, we saw Pauline coming towards us. She was slim and lovely, reflecting angelic beauty, dressed in a light tunic of luminous silk. Her eyes reflected deep concern. The nurse introduced us politely. Probably feeling I could be trusted, she inquired anxiously, "How is father, my friend?" "A little better," Narcissa answered, "but still considerably unbalanced. It's a pity." Pauline continued, "Neither he nor the others will give up the mental attitude in which they obstinately persist. Always the same hate, the same lack of understanding." Narcissa invited us to follow her, and in a few moments, we were standing by the bedside of what looked like a disagreeable old man. With his bitter, scowling look, disheveled hair, deep wrinkles, and retracted lips, he inspired more pity than sympathy. However, I endeavored to control my inferior vibrations and to see in this unfortunate sufferer only a spirit brother. My feelings of repulsion disappeared, and my mind felt clearer. I applied the lesson to myself, how I had arrived at the ministry of assistance. How repelling my own appearance must have been, with utter desperation written all over my face. When we consider other people's misfortune in the light of our own imperfections, there is always room for brotherly love in our heart. I love this lesson here. I think it's really beautiful. And I like Andre's attitude. Here he is seeing this old man. I mean, he tries, he's very kind with his description of the man. He's trying, but we get the idea that, you know, he's old, he's wrinkled, he's bitter looking. He doesn't have the appearance that would that you would think, okay, this is a lovely person on the bed that you just want to hug. It's a kind old man. But Andre, he immediately went back to when he himself first appeared in No Solar as a patient. And he thought to himself, wait a minute, you know, that having that mental attitude to this man is probably not a good idea, because how did I appear to other people? How were they looking at me? You know, and I think sometimes we can also apply that very same lesson, because it helps us to develop compassion for other people. If we were to see ourselves in someone, or for example, if I was sick on a bed and someone is visiting me, regardless of how it is I appear or I may see myself, how do I want somebody else to see me?
I think, Ebony, I like when he said as well about controlling my inferior vibrations. So it's still like, I think that it's what we always have to apply all the time. I mean, when we think things that we shouldn't, it's like the control, and how he's still learning, because it's like he has to stop and think, no, let me control this vibration, because inferior vibrations affect everything. Go back and try to find the, like, see him as just a brother and not what was there.
Exactly. And it also reminds us too, because it's not just for discarnates in the spiritual realm, but for us here as incarnates, when we go to a hospital or to a hospice and we visit someone, we always have to think about our mental attitude. What are we thinking? You know, because our thoughts, our vibrations actually affect them. but very few of us, we have that knowledge. And so we don't really know what our vibrations, how our vibrations are actually affecting the patients when we go to visit them. But here, again, I think Andre is very wise, because he was able to stop himself in the moment and say, wait a minute, I shouldn't be doing this. You know, let me adjust my attitude.
And sorry, Ebony, I would like also to make a personal comment, because here we are talking about the control the inferior vibrations. When you see someone physically so ill with this description, but I was thinking about myself in the workplace. Sometimes some member of staff, sometimes someone superior who sometimes come and then talks, things that I don't agree. I have sometimes just say, well, okay, let's stop that, okay, negative vibration, because not to start to criticize it. Oh no, that person is coming to my room again. So now I try to avoid this, because doesn't help at all. But it's instinctive. So say, oh no, have to talk to her again. So,
and that's why it takes practice, right?
Exactly.
We have to actually practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on. The old patient had no words of affection for his daughter, who greeted him tenderly. He looked like a caged beast as he frowned at her, eyes glowing with harshness and rebellion. Are you feeling better, Father? Asked Pauline with loving respect. So there is his wonderful daughter, Pauline, visiting him on the bed. This is his attitude towards her. And, I'm sure it comes natural to her, but the way she's interacting with him is completely different from how he is with her. Oh no, the patient bellowed. I can't forget the villain. I have no peace of mind. I can still see him by my bedside administering deadly poison. Please, Father, do try to forget all that, she earnestly entreated. Remember that Ethelbert entered our home as a son sent by God. My son? Never, shouted the unfortunate old man. He is a loathsome criminal, unworthy of pardon. He is the devil's own son. That's what he is. So I think here we have, without reading the entire chapter, we have some idea as to what is happening here. I'm sorry, not Francis, but what's his name? We don't have a name for him as yet, right?
Ethelbert.
No, Ethelbert is his son.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this old man, apparently, he must have been poisoned, and he discriminated.
By the
yes,
son.
He's poisoned by his son, right? And he is completely still connected with what he went through. He can't forget the experience that he had. The chapter is titled Euthanasia. So his son, he must have been sick, and his son must have tried to speed up his death. But let's see what happens here. Pauline's eyes brimming with tears spoke persuasively. Father, let us learn from Jesus to love one another. On earth, our family experiences are the means of teaching us real spiritual love. We must bear in mind that there is only one Father who is truly eternal, God. But the Lord of life grants us the blessed opportunity of fatherhood and motherhood on earth, so that we may learn perfectly brotherly love. They are the temples of sublime union, a preparation for universal solidarity. We have to struggle and suffer a great deal before acquiring the title of brother in the real sense of the word. The whole creation is but one family under the loving care of only one Father. Hearing his daughter's sweet voice, the patient broke into convulsive weeping. Father, forgive Ethelbert. Try to see in him not only the reckless son, but the brother badly in need of enlightenment. I have just come from our earthly home, where I observed serious disturbances. From your sick bed here, you are constantly projecting poisonous fluids of bitterness and incomprehension to them. They, in turn, are doing the same to you. Thought, as subtle waves, never misses its target, however distant it may be. The exchange of hate and suspicion causes ruin and suffering to the soul. Broken down by continual sorrow, Mother was unable to resist the atmosphere of home and was taken to a mental hospital a few days ago. Amalia and Casilda have brought a lawsuit against Ethelbert and Agenor because of serious disagreements about the large fortune you amassed on the physical plane. A sad situation indeed, but one which might gradually improve were it not for your vigorous mind steeped in plans of revenge. Here in the spirit sphere, I find you distressed. On earth, Mother is insane, and your children greatly disturbed, hating one another bitterly. Amidst all those unbalanced minds, a fortune of banknotes. What is the use of all that money if it doesn't buy 1 moment of happiness? So here we have a better picture of what is happening, I think. We have this father who amassed a lot of wealth. He has 3 or 4, well, he has children who inherited his wealth. But before they came into inheritance, it seemed like one of the sons killed him to speed up coming into inheritance. And the father who disconnected under those conditions, he seems to be obsessing them. The mother is in a mental hospital. The children are fighting and feuding with each other, and we have a daughter who is very loving, who must have disincarnated before. She's trying to bring the family together, engage them in some sort of family reconciliation. But the father who having disconnected because he was killed, he can't seem to let go of thoughts of revenge, and he's not in the mood or the frame of mind to even listen to what the daughter is saying. What does that tell us about wealth? And to me, it raises questions of how we raise our children. And I know there are even some wealthy people who don't even consider leaving wealth for their children after they're gone. Not necessarily to not leave them anything to live on, but because they don't want to create this kinds of environment where family members are fighting and feuding, or the entire existence is all about, okay, when am I going to be inheriting this wealth?
Ebony,
right?
I think what came to me, I think that what's causing more of that as well is the negative, the sub waves of this negativity that is hitting them. So maybe Edbert tried to kill him, but because he's just so set in this revenge, it's affecting the mother and all the other children. So it's just not the money, but it's the revenge or like the anger of death that's causing the family.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well.
Because it says when you go up a little bit more here, it says that they're feuding with each other. From your sickbed here, you are constantly projecting poisonous fluids of bitterness and incomprehension to them, and they in turn are doing the same to you, right? So it's mutual obsession.
Yeah.
It's not just the father that is sending these negative vibrations and just plotting in his condition, plotting revenge. It's also the children, for whatever reason, are also sending these kinds of poisonous thoughts to him and poisonous vibration. And it begs the question, why, right? Why, when you've already inherited so much? But it doesn't give us these details. But I think what is also important here is, in spite of all of that, we have this daughter who is trying to get him to forget about all of the hate, forget about what the son did to you, and think about the now. Try to forgive. Think about, that we have this family, and regardless of what has happened, I mean, she's counseling him, with Christian charity, to practice love for each other and forgiveness. But he's not hearing it. But I left my family ample means, retorted the unhappy man. I was anxious for their welfare. Pauline continued, interrupting him. In the question of transitory riches, we don't always know what is the best thing to do. If you had assured your family's future by maintaining an atmosphere of moral tranquility in your home and prepared your children to earn an honest living, your efforts might have been a great help. And I think here, this is what I was trying to express earlier. There are family members who, even stars, I was reading a couple weeks ago about some movie stars who decided that they're not going to be leaving children their wealth. I mean, it's still no excuse, because you can also raise your children to be responsible adults and to manage wealth properly. But there are also family members who decide, you know what, I'm not going to be leaving anything for you, or if I do leave anything, it's going to be small. What I want you to do, what I want to inculcate in you is the value of work. And here it talks about moral tranquility in your home. That is something that obviously they didn't have in the home. We have Ethelbert, who seemed to perhaps he must have been thinking about this wealth so much that he couldn't wait for the father to die and wanted to speed it up, right? But I think here is another important lesson. If you had assured, this is what the daughter is telling the father now in hindsight. If you had assured your family's future by maintaining an atmosphere of moral tranquility in your home and prepared your children to earn an honest living, your efforts might have been a great help. Sometimes, Father, we accumulate money through pride and ambition. We are anxious to live above others. And while centering our attention on the external aspects of life, we forget the more important lasting side. Few are those who seek to acquire worthwhile knowledge and the precious qualities of tolerance, humility, and understanding. Instead, we insist on bending others to our will, neglecting the tasks assigned to us by our Father, and altogether forgetting to cultivate our spirits. No one is born on the planet merely to hoard money in safes and banks. Of course, during our sojourn, we may, as faithful stewards who know how to manage wisely what is entrusted to them, claim our legitimate share. But it is impossible to be our Father's faithful stewards if we are greedy and overbearing. It was that false understanding of divine stewardship that ruined our home. I tried in vain to render spiritual help to the family, while you and mother sacrificed yourselves to increase your worldly goods. Amalia and Casilda, disdaining any useful work, trifled away precious time, finally marrying idlers like themselves, who only married them for their money. Agenor, influenced by his worthless companions, wasted all opportunities of serious study. Ethelbert graduated as a physician, but was indifferent to the profession. He approached its noble activities only rarely, and even then only out of sheer curiosity. Spoiled by easily obtained money, and with minds fixed on the coming inheritance, they all ruined their fine spiritual possibilities. The patient, terror-stricken, cried out, "Cursed Ethelbert, criminal and ungrateful son! He murdered me pitilessly when I still needed to review the terms of my will. Malicious felon! Please, Father, don't say that. Have mercy on your son. Forgive and forget." Easier said than done for most of us, right?
Mm. You know, one thing that whenever I read cases like this, and we do have similar cases in other books. I don't have children yet, but I always have that thought or that worry that I realize, look, that I have a duty as a parent to teach them things and try to show them the right way and teach them the right things to do. But I can only go so far, right? The people are still independent beings with their free will and so on, etc. And for me, it's very clear that in this case, there was an element of example that was also lacking on the father. So I think based on what they're telling us, there was also an element of that when they were being raised. But I do have that concern because even if you give the example and you try to educate and you show and you share, what's the values and the principles and so on, not even talking about religion, I'm talking about the moral principles that you live your life by. Your children are still going to be their own adults. Yes. And I'm scared by that.
Rafael, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, but I always say that if you live by your morals and you do what you say, yes, because action speaks louder than words, the chance of a child to go to the wrong path is much, much less.
Yeah.
Because even if they stray away, I don't know where I read that, even if they stray away, their principle inside is going to bring them back in the right path sooner or later.
Yeah.
So it's what I kind of like, I can make me sleep a little bit better thinking that, we don't have any control, but the chance is much smaller, I believe.
Yeah, that concern that you raised, Raphael, makes me think of that saying that we have, you make children and you don't make their mind. So no matter how much you may try to discipline them and instill certain values in them, they grow up to be their own adults. But then, Denise, you're also right in the sense that, if you've laid that foundation and you've taught them all that you've done, all that you could do, there's going to be moments where they're going to revert to that. Oh, remember what mom told me, remember what dad told me. And that's going to have an effect in their lives no matter what. I think.
Yeah. The other thing then when I read this one now on this part that you highlighted, the forgive and forget, is I can't even imagine, at least right now in this life, which is a good thing, because you're being betrayed by, you know, a business partner or, you know, a friend, it's something, but then having to face something like that from your own family with people that in principle did not have issues, right? I mean, sometimes they have issues in the families from the start. It doesn't seem to be the case in his case. um how to forgive and forget?
Not easy.
Yeah, not easy.
Yeah.
And we also have to remember that we remain the very same person that we are on both sides of the veil. So, you know, if forgiveness is not something that you've been practicing all your life, when you discarnate, I mean, here is his father. He's not even able to forgive his own son.
Yeah.
You know, so it tells a lot. Moving on, but he went on cursing and swearing. Pauline was about to resume when Narcissa gave her a warning glance and called Sallustius to help the patient, by this time aroused to a dangerous condition of emotional excitement. Pauline became silent, trying hard to keep back her tears. She continued by the bedside, stroking her father's forehead with a gentle hand. Painfully impressed by the scene I had just witnessed, I followed Narcissa and Pauline out of the ward. The two friends talked for some time, and then Pauline took her leave with kind words of thanks. Her eyes showed sadness and worry. When we were alone again, Narcissa remarked, as a rule, inheritance cases are extremely delicate, with few exceptions. They cause great trouble for both testators and legatees. This case, however, is far more serious because of the euthanasia. Ambition for wealth created all kinds of complexes and misunderstandings in Pauline's family. Avaricious parents generally have extravagant children.
Yeah.
And I would add that they usually raise them to be selfish as well.
Yeah.
I had accompanied her to her earthly home when her brother Ethelbert, a gentlemanly doctor, used so-called easy death on his dying father. We did our best to prevent him from carrying out his plan, but it was all in vain. For financial reasons, the distressed son was anxious to accelerate his father's passing, and now we see the result: hatred and infirmity. God created beings and celestial regions, but we insist on transforming ourselves into diabolical spirits, creating our own individual hell.
Ebony, that last paragraph is very strong, no?
I think so. I think so. I mean, we have a picture of an entire family, save and except for the daughter who's trying to help. And this is what they have created for themselves. Lack of parental guidance, unnecessary attachment to wealth, greed, hatred, unwillingness to forgive or love your children the way you're supposed to love them. Because I think if the father loved his son, even if his son killed him, he would forgive him, right? So they had everything that that they needed to create the life that they should have created for themselves. But this is the outcome because of, you know, their own imperfections. And I think it's a lesson for all of us. Here, you know, this is how she stated it: we create our own individual hell. And so the father is living in this hell because of his own making. The mother and the children, the mother is in a mental hospital, and God knows what she's going through. It is, in fact, her own hell. And in spite of inheriting the wealth, I mean, we were told higher up that they're still not happy. The daughters married people who just wanted to take advantage of them, and the sons, they were not happy.
This, I agree with Sandra. This final paragraph is very impactful. I think the wording.
Yeah.
But this is probably one of, I remember the first time, I don't remember the moment, but I remember the first time that studying about heaven and hell, that it came the realization of what is heaven and hell in reality. There was such a, I remember there was heavy, there was like a big, heavy weight to kind of handle. And that in the end, we are the ones creating the heaven and the hell, and the heaven and hell are nothing but the emotional, mental states that we put ourselves in, let's say. That is heavy to digest. And I think that's the point of this paragraph.
Yeah.
Because it is like a very harsh reality to kind of get your head around.
Can you imagine the difference that the father would feel, the difference in his hell, if he were to start forgiving his children, his son in particular? You know, if he were to just change that attitude, he would actually start creating a better environment for himself, right?
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? That's the thing. That's what I like about like the teachings, is because it's always build up layers on. I think I said that last week. Layers on top of layers on top of layers. Because once, as Ebony, exactly what Ebony was saying, once we realize that we create our own hell, we also realize that it's up to us to find the ways out of it. And finding the ways out of it is changing how we are, monitoring our thoughts, being helpful, forgetting, forgiving. And then it goes back to the work, the hard work that we need to put on in improving ourselves. Which again, difficult to accomplish. But we have everything we need, and we have the help as well. That's good.
It is a very strong lesson in the end, but I think it's also sad because it tells us that there's still a lot of work that has to go into this family for them to have reconciliation with each other. In the end, Pauline, she left the ward crying. She was sad. It says here her eyes showed sadness and worry. Here again, it says she became silent, trying hard to keep back her tears. So it's not easy work. So we do have mentors, we have friends, we have family members who are rooting for us in the spiritual realm. But they can only do so much, right? It's really up to us to embrace these teachings and to apply to ourselves.
But I think Pauline's role is also something that gives a bit of light, because even though it's such a hard situation that they are describing, they have always by their side Pauline and the spiritual benefactors, because they described that they were already involved in this even before the father died. They were trying to, influence them not to make the decision and so on. So I think this is for us to also open our eyes that it's something that I repeat a lot is that it's difficult. Yeah, it's difficult, but you know about it, And there is help. Help is available. Help is by you. He's on your side. You might not be seeing, you might not be, following it, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a good, like, something hopeful for us to hold on to.
Yeah, yeah. Another point that I want to make is, can we put ourselves in that situation, in the situation of the father, as human beings? Can we, if we were in his situation, just it's an exercise in know thyself. If you were in that situation and you become aware that your son or your daughter killed you, are you going to have that reaction as the father did? Are you in a position, can you honestly say that you're in a position to forgive your daughter or your son? I know, Raphael, you say you don't have kids yet, but can you imagine? A lot of people say, well, oh yeah, I would. But
yeah, I don't know.
Here is this man. I mean, this is his son.
I don't know if I would be like him, but I would be very sad. I don't think it'll be easy for me to. I don't think I'll be angry. I don't know. I never know those things. I'm just like talking here, but I definitely would not be like, oh yeah, forgetful, forgiving. I like to think that I would, but I don't think it's that easy. It would be that smooth.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ebony, before we start, it says here, avaricious parents. My pronunciation, I don't know, avaricious, yes? Avaricious?
Mhm.
Yes.
So it means the parents, what they give in terms of feelings, in terms of love to their children.
Probably not a lot of good ones, or not a lot of like real valuable
No
ones.
feelings.
Yeah.
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 I mean, what we give is what we receive, right? So,
exactly.
Yeah. How do we know that? I mean, the son is not even reacting because of how he was treated by his parents or not raised properly by his parents, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Something to think about. Chapter 31. Whoo, the vampire.
Wow. I'm scared.
The vampire. It was 9 o'clock in the evening, and we had not yet had a moment's rest, except for the short consultations necessary for the solution of spiritual problems. Here I saw a patient begging for help. Over there, another in need of magnetic passes. On our way to assist two patients in Pavilion 11, I heard screams in a nearby ward. I would have run in that direction if Narcisa had not held me back. Please don't go, she warned. The sexually unbalanced patients are lodged there. The picture will be too painful to your eyes. Wait until you are better prepared. I did not insist, but thousands of questions rushed to my mind. A new world was unfolding itself, and my curiosity was great. I had to concentrate on Lycia's mother's advice so as not to become distracted from my legitimate duties. Soon after 9, a quaint little man, to all appearances a humble worker, emerged from amidst the trees of the enormous park. I later learned that he belonged to the Sentinel Corps of the Chambers of Rectification. Narcisa greeted him and asked, "What is the matter, Justin? What is your message?" "I've come to inform you that an unfortunate woman is begging for help at the large gate that leads to the tilling fields. I believe she must have escaped the attention of the frontline sentinels." He answered anxiously, And why don't you help her? Asked the nurse. The guard gestured and hastened to explain. According to our regulations, we are forbidden to. The poor creature is surrounded by black spots. I wonder what that means. Here we, well, at least I think of Christian charity in the spiritual realm as extended to everyone who comes asking for help, right? But we have a situation here where, according to regulations, rules and regulations, only certain people, or they are forbidden to give help to certain individuals. I think that is interesting. The poor creature is surrounded by black spots. Really? She exclaimed, taken aback. Yes, nurse. It's just as I tell you. Then it's a very serious cause. I was filled with curiosity and followed her for a considerable distance across the moonlit fields. We were surrounded by the silent park, its shady trees, rustling gently in the soft breeze. After walking for well over a mile, we came to the gate. So we see here that they're actually walking, right? They're not, they're not, they're not flying or floating. They're actually using their legs and walking. There stood the pitiful figure of a woman begging for mercy from the other side. I saw nothing but a squalid creature dressed in rags, with a hideous face and legs covered with raw soles. But judging from her startled expression, I realized that Narcissa saw many more details still imperceptible to me. Children of God, she screamed, she cried on seeing us. Please give shelter to my weary soul. Where is the paradise of the elect, that I may enjoy the peace I long for? I was filled with compassion at her tearful voice. Narcissa, though also sorry for the unfortunate beggar, whispered to me, "Can't you see the black spots?" "No, I can't. Your spirit vision isn't sufficiently trained. If it depended on me, I would let her in at once. But on dealing with creatures in this condition, I can't decide for myself. I must apply to the chief warden on duty." She approached the poor woman and said kindly, "Please wait a few minutes." So here we have this unfortunate beggar, as she's described here, in a deplorable condition, and there's this concerns about black spots that she's exhibiting on her perispiritual body. I wonder what those black spots could be. And perhaps that's the reason why she's not going to be allowed to enter. We hurried back to the house, where for the first time I came into contact with the chief of sentinels of the chambers of rectification. Narcissa introduced us and then rapidly reported the occurrence. "You were right to have come to me," he replied. "Let's go see her." We were soon back at the gate. The chief warden carefully examined the newcomer from the lower zone and declared, "For the time being, this woman can't receive our assistance. She is one of the strongest vampires I have ever come across. She must be left to herself." What is the meaning of vampires? How are they using that term? I mean, is it the same meaning that popular media that we see in movies and so on? Is it the same meaning, or is there a different meaning?
I think we have an explanation, Ebony.
Yeah, at the bottom,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
By vampire, the spirit author refers to one who extinguishes life for personal advantage. And I think by that definition, we can have a lot of people on Earth.
I think, Ebony, I think I read somewhere that when the people are dying, there's some low spirit that comes and try to take your last like fluid, like life fluid that you have got. So that's what that's how I understand about the vampire. So I don't know. I read somewhere about that. The spirits come when someone is about to die. Well, I don't remember which book that I read when I was going to have a war and lots of spirits was coming together because there's a war. Lots of people was going to die, so they could take the lash of the vital fluid that the person has when they're about to die.
Well, I'm sure that's a definition of vampire as well. But we also have another definition here, and it tells us that first and foremost, she's a killer. I don't mean to be harsh, but it says someone who extinguishes life for personal advantage, right? So she's doing it for her own desires, for her own advantage. And I wonder what circumstances could have created that for her to do that.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
a problem like that can start like the son in the story. He took the father lives for his own advantage. So probably is not exactly the same case, but a story like that can start like that. Maybe kind of a behavior of a vampire.
Yeah.
For your own personal.
Yeah.
There's I'm gonna need to do homework for next week, but there is a book. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to take a look. That explains a little bit about vampires. And well, the thing is, we use the word vampires. Ebony said it's not like the usual, right? But if we think about vampire in the sense of anyone that is taking advantage of someone else in any sense, is a very loose concept. That they are vampires, and I think Sandra said you have some of them that might even everybody said they might even be amongst us incarnate, right? But that one specifically, I think you're right. I think it might be a bit more serious because of what they were saying, like the extinguishing his life is sounds very serious, but I think in the end we have much more people who are in that category, or spirits are in that category than we think. I remember, I know we were about time, but just a quick one. I remember watching one of those lectures online about something, and don't remember what. And then the person giving the talk, they got to a point and said, "Look, I'm sorry to disappoint all of you. I don't know if you realize or if somebody told you that already, but it is very likely that we are all vampires here one way or another. That if as incarnate or discarnate, because let's remember, because of how connected we are to sensations and physical experiences, once we get on the other side, then we still have that need and that what's the word? Forgot the word. But anyways, you want that experience. You end up approaching people who do the same things to, through them, feel those sensations. And you're also being a vampire in that sense. And that was quite be like, look, that's not just antagonized vampires, because we're talking about us. We're talking about all of us, which was, again, quite shock to receive.
Yeah.
No time is
And
up.
I'm sorry, just this last point. I think that's one of the reasons why No Solar and Andre's description about his experience in the spiritual realm is so helpful for us, because it's some of the things that we do and we take for granted as, you know, it's nothing and it doesn't have any consequences. He comes and he shows us that in fact that they do. I mean, he himself, he was adamant that he wasn't a suicide. And so we have to rethink, we're forced to rethink our definition of what is a suicide as per the spiritual realm. Here, we are also forced to redefine our definition of what is a vampire as per the spiritual realm. You know, so there's a lot of things that we're learning.
Yeah. We stopped in a good moment here.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, I'm so glad that I don't have to wait 2 weeks.
Every week now.
Oh.
So next week we'll find out some more details about what exactly, how they define vampire and what makes this woman a vampire. So
good. Let me stop the